Good morning. Welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for Wednesday, September 29th, 2021. We had a relatively late night last night with a offshore wind public comment hearing. We ended around 9 o'clock. Since I was up that late already, I waited to midnight to see whether FERC was going to act in docket ER 212582. For the uninitiated, that is the PJM MOPR docket, which this commission has litigated for at least 3+ years. I'm happy to announce that by inaction of FERC, so your federal government inaction, FERC has declined to address the more narrowed minimum offer price rule filed by PJM back in July. And because FERC failed to act by midnight of last night, the new revised reformed MOPR is now in effect. So I'm glad that that ugly chapter in wholesale market history has been closed and we move forward. We do have minutes to approve from our last meeting on September 15th, 2021. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 22 items on today's consent agenda. Items 1 through 16 are unbundled network element. Loop forbearance amendments to interconnection agreements between Verizon Maryland LLC and respectively Star Power Communications LLC, DBA RCN, Bandwidth.com CLEC LLC, Broadview Networks Inc. and Telefiber Networks LLC, Paytech Communications LLC, US LEC of Maryland LLC, Windstream KDL LLC, Business Telecom LLC DBA Earthlink Business, CTC Communications Corp DBA Earthlink Business, Windstream New Edge LLC and Windstream Services LLC, Broadwing Communications LLC, Century Communications LLC, Global Crossing Local Services Inc., Level 3 Communications LLC, Level 3 Telecom of Maryland LLC, and Telcove Operations LLC. Item number 17 is a notice of withdrawal of operating authority and tariffs from Mobility Management LLC. Item number 18 consists of tariff revisions regarding 8YY access charge reform from Envoy LLC. Item number 19 is a request from Its Electric and Water Inc. to cancel its electricity and gas supplier licenses. Item number 20 is a notice of name change from Spark Energy Inc. And item number 21 is a notice of gas service agreement from Sandpiper Energy Inc. And finally, item number 22 is an application for approval to construct a generation station from the University of Maryland, Baltimore.
Thank you. Thank you. With regard to item number 20, Spark Energy, do we have counsel for Spark Energy with us this morning? It appears that we do not. We did have an item from Spark Energy that was held over from earlier this summer. I wanted to inquire with Spark's counsel what the status of that was, but since they're not here, I recognize that we're only noting a name change to Via Renewables. I see we have counsel for representative for staff. Mr. Zhang, do you have anything to report on Spark Energy?
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Michael Zhang on behalf of staff. The previous Spark Energy item that was deferred for now, what staff is trying to do with the company as well as with CAD is
Well, Mr. Zhang, without counsel for Spark here, I wouldn't want to represent their positions, so okay. I want to be careful there. So I won't actually be asking you any questions, you or Ms. Zhang today.
Thank you.
But thank you for turning on your microphones. I do recognize that any entity is free to change their name, and we're only noting the filing today. But perhaps when we hear from Spark, when they refile formally, we'll get an update from them. That is all I had. Do my colleagues have any questions for the consent items? Seeing none, with respect to items number 1 through 16, I move that we approve the interconnection agreement 10 days following a 30-day comment period unless adverse comments are filed. With respect to item number 17, I move that we rescind the company's operating authority and cancel its tariffs. With respect to item number 18, I move that we accept the tariff provisions for filing with an effective date of September 30th, 2021. With respect to item number 19, I move that we approve the cancellation request. With respect to item number 20, I move that we note the filing. With respect to item number 21, I move that we accept the negotiated contract for filing. And with respect to item number 22, I move that we approve the application. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motions are approved. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 23 on today's administrative agenda was deferred from the September 8th AM. It consists of updated service connection fees from Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, Inc. On this item for staff, we have Anna Joy Harris and James Greger. For SMECO, Mark McDougall, Eugene Bradford, Lizelle Rory, and Adam Mearswell.
Thank you to the parties for returning on this item. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the commission and my request holding this item for me to look into it a little bit more. And I appreciate the party's forbearance and the applicant. There's a long and tortured history with the utility and the Building Industry Association with this. And it goes back a ways. Some of it's a little confusing to unbundle, but on whole, I've been convinced that it's time to move forward and to, in effect, quit spreading some of these costs around. And the principle of fuss causation kind of won the day with me, although it will continue to be controversial with the Building Industry Association and the developers in Southern Maryland. But I'm good to go.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have comments or questions? Seeing none, do the parties have anything to add based on their testimony from 3 weeks ago?
You're on mute.
Thank you very much. The company has nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I would move that we accept the revised tariff pages for filing as modified by staff in its comments dated August 31st, 2021, with an effective date of September 1st, 2021. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 24 consists of revisions to Schedule PL private area lighting and Schedule SL street lighting of Baltimore Gas and Electric Company's tariff. On this item for staff, we have Brett Sproul and James Greger. For the company, John Frayne, Lynn Fiery, and Beverly Sikora.
Thank you. Good morning to the staff team.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Sproul.
Cool. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Brett Sproul on behalf of staff. On August 10th, 2021, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company, or BGE, filed revisions to their retail electric service tariff, proposing to add additional energy-efficient lighting options for Schedule PL, private area lighting, and Schedule SL, street lighting. These additions include 8 new light-emitting diode, or LED, fixtures for private area lighting and 7 new LED fixtures for street lighting customers. These new fixtures were specifically added as a response to increased customer interest for additional LED fixture options in each of the respective rate classes. The rate for each individual fixture was calculated by the company and analyzed by staff after sending multiple data requests to understand the inputs and methodology used by the company for rate calculations. The rate calculation for scheduled private area lighting includes the cost of the fixture, reactive service maintenance costs, and supply costs. The rate calculation for scheduled street lighting includes only the cost of the fixture itself. Reactive service maintenance costs and supply costs for this schedule are recovered through other charges. Staff has reviewed the company's rate calculations for the 8 new LED fixtures being added to Schedule PL and the 7 new LED fixtures being added to Schedule SL. Additionally, staff confirms that the methodology used to set these rates is consistent with previously approved rates for BGE LED lighting options. Staff recommends that the commission accept the proposed tariff changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sproul, and congratulations on your first appearance before the commission.
Thank you, commissioners.
We will now turn to counsel for the utility, Ms. Sikora. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Stanek and Commissioners. Beverly Sikora on behalf of BGE. We have no comments other than to thank staff for its very thorough review. But we are here if you have any questions for us.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sproul, I'm gonna initiate you well, so you get used to me asking questions, because I want to do that sometimes. So all the discussion from staff is about the rate calculations for the tariffs. Is there any interplay whatsoever with Empower Maryland?
Can you hear me okay again?
Yes.
From our research, we did not ask the company any questions regarding Empower Maryland, and we didn't have any further research with Empower.
Ms. Sikora, can you shed any LED light on this for me?
Unfortunately, I can't, but Ms. Fiery is on the call and she might be able to. Or Mr.
Yes.
Crane.
Yep. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Commissioner O'Donnell, yes, our street lighting and private area lighting classes do not participate in Empower. They do not pay into the surcharge, and they do not get to participate in any programs.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I thought so, but we have another filing with another utility that kind of wrestled with, and wanted to make sure there was nothing precedential being established here. Thank you.
Thank you. I learned something new today. Private area does not contribute to Empower. Commissioner Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sproul, I'll ask you this question, but you being new to the commission, may not know the answer, and then perhaps Ms. Sikora can help me out as well. But my question is, we're doing this, we're adding lights and adding rates, new rates outside of a rate case. Is this customary for lighting schedules to add new lights as they come in, or is this something that's new? And again, if you don't know, it's okay, and we can let Ms. Sikora take it.
And I will refer to Ms. Sikora on this
Okay.
question as well.
Okay. Ms. Sikora?
Yes, it is. We try not to make filings, too frequently to add new LED fixtures, in between rate cases. But yes, we have done this in the past in between rate cases. As really when we're adding light fixtures, it's because we're getting requests from our customers that they want to install LEDs. Usually they're replacing, I shouldn't say usually, but either they're replacing other forms of lights to put in LEDs, or they're just putting in new LEDs. So we try, and after, I don't know if we have a set number that we try to gather up, and then we make a filing. But yeah, we've done this several times in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I have a question for the company, Ms. Sikora. Just to clarify your response to the staff data request number 2, where you've explained that the rationale for why you're requesting to add additional fixtures. You noted there that customers request new options from time to time, and then you'll go through the testing process to make sure that it works with your safety and reliability requirements. So have you done that already with the options that we're adding today, or is that something that is yet to be done?
No, that's already been done.
That's already been. So we're talking about additional fixtures beyond the ones that you're proposing now.
I think we were just explaining the process of getting to the point we're at now, that before we come to the commission, a customer will say, hey, what about this light fixture? It's not in your tariff. We'll say, well, first thing we need to do is make sure that it's safe and won't jeopardize the reliability of our system. If we go through those steps, and then, we find that it's acceptable, then we will do, all the rate calculations, and then we will come to the commission for approval. So I think we were just in that one, we were trying to explain how we get to this point.
All right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you to staff and the utility. Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of October 1st, 2021. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 25 consists of revised tariff pages from BGE to true up administrative charge rates under its Rider 1. On this item for staff, we have Anna Joy Harris and Michael Dean, and for the company, Beverly Sakura and Lynn Fiery.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Harris.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Anna Joy Harris on behalf of staff. On August 30th, 2021, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company filed revisions to Rider 1 to include the October 2021 true-up of the standard offer service administrative charges for residential, Type 1, Type 2, and hourly rates. Under Rider 1, the SOS administrative charges are subject to adjustment by a true-up in February, June, and October billing months to reflect the estimated incremental, uncollectible, and cash working capital costs of providing service to customers. The filing also includes changes to Schedule PL rates, which change the result of the proposed SOS administrative charges. The administrative charge is decreasing for residential customers and increasing for Type 1, Type 2, and hourly customers. The proposed charges are effective October 1st, 2021 through January 31st of 2022. Staff recommends that the Commission accept for filing the proposed tariff changes with an effective date of October 1st, 2021. Furthermore, due to the approval of the prior item regarding BGE's LED lighting options, staff recommends that the Commission order the company to file clean copies of Schedule PL to incorporate both the new lamp offerings and the adjusted administrative charge. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel for the utility, anything more to add? Oh, Ms. Sakura, you're on mute.
Of course. Your Honor, just BGE is okay with staff's recommendation. We will be making a filing if the commission approves this filing here today.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of October 1st, 2021, subject to the condition noted by Ms. Harris with respect to the approval in item number 24. Motion, the vote on the motion begins with Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 26 is a request from Washington Gas Light Company for an extension of a transportation service agreement. On this item for staff, we have Ben Baker and Kenneth Albert, and for WGL, John Dodge and Paul Buckley.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Baker.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Benjamin Baker on behalf of staff. Washington Gas and Light filed a request to extend a gas transportation service agreement between WGL and the National Institute of Health until February 28th, 2021. The previous contract was approved by the Commission August 10th, 2016, and was set to expire August 31st, 2021. The Commission issued an order extending the contract by 1 month to permit staff time to review whether the requested 6-month extension satisfied the Commission standards for a negotiated contract. After reviewing the filing, staff recommends the Commission extend to February 28th, 2022, the transportation service agreement between WGL Company and the National Institute of Health. Staff recommends the Commission require WGL to submit proof by February 28th, 2022 that the contract continued to cover customer-specific variable costs attributable to providing transportation service for the National Institute of Health. Thank you, and we are available for questions.
Thank you. We'll turn to counsel for the utility. Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Chairman Stanek. Good morning, Commissioners. John Dodge, appearing on behalf of Washington Gas. As the Secretary mentioned, I'm joined by my colleague, Paul Buckley. No further comments from the company, except to extend our thanks to staff. We had a very cordial and extended dialogue about this matter, and we appreciate the thoroughness in the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dodge, the National Institute of Health, they're on board with everything we're discussing today?
Yes, we have their consent to request the additional extension, Your Honor. And if I may, usually we have renegotiated or re-upped a contract. NIH had a complete turnover in the people running their CHP and other operations at their campus in Bethesda. So it took us a little extra time to track down the right folks. And once we tracked them down, we had to educate them that they had to get back with us. They didn't understand that the contract needed to be renewed or renegotiated. So that's why we're asking for a little bit more time, and we certainly hope to bring this back to the commission before the 5 months has expired.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have questions on this item? Seeing none, I would move that we grant an extension to February 28th, 2022 for the transportation service agreement between the Washington Gas Light Company and the National Institutes of Health, and direct Washington Gas Light Company to submit proof by February 28th, 2022 that the contract continued to cover the customer-specific variable costs attributable to providing the transportation service to the National Institutes of Health. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 27 is a revised customer bill form from UGI Utilities, Inc. On this item for staff, we have Lucy Shea and Peter Wilson, and for the company, Kristen Erickson and Chris Rossi.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Lucy Shea on behalf of staff. On September 3rd, 2021, pursuant to COMAR 20.55.03.02C, UGI filed and submitted a sample bill with changes it proposes to the customer bill form effective November 1st, 2021. Staff reviewed the proposed revised customer bill form and compared it to those of other natural gas utilities in the state and concluded that the proposed information to be printed is normally shown on a customer's bill for service. Staff notes that the phrase "not applicable to Maryland customers" is duplicated in the definition of state tax surcharge, and the duplication should be deleted. Staff recommends that the commission require the duplicated phrase "not applicable to Maryland customers" be deleted, and note UGI's proposed revisions to its customer bill form as filed effective November 1st, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel for UGI. Anything to add?
Just to say we're slightly chagrined by the typo, and thanks staff for their keen eye, and we certainly have no issues with making the proposed change.
Thank you, Ms. Erickson. I reviewed the bill format and it looks clear and informative to customers. I've been speaking with many of the utilities in our state and have tried to emphasize that this is the one document that every customer gets in their hand, in their mailbox every month. And it's incumbent upon the utilities to convey not only the bill amount, but usage and other very important information on the bill. I find that UGI has hit the mark here, and I encourage the rest of our 19 or 18 electric and gas utilities across the state to continually look at its bill design and bill format to assist customers in their usage and consumption of electric and gas. Do my colleagues have questions? Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I just had two questions. One comment and one question. For the comment, I would suggest taking a quick look at the bill to make sure that you've changed the PUC to PSC. I caught it once, just from a quick look. It might be in here more than once, I don't know. Secondly, I noticed that we didn't have any references to the Maryland PSC's our phone number. So is this the whole bill, or is there additional pages that were not revised, so they weren't included?
No, this is the whole bill, but I'm sorry, I didn't catch your statement about what you think is missing. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Any reference to the Maryland Public Service Commission, like how to contact us if a customer
On
has.
how to contact them. But no, this is the whole bill backer. You know, certainly if there are questions when individuals call UGI subject to the, you know, customer service lines that are here, we have information that we can provide to customers if they have questions, but we can certainly take a look at including some information to consumers to refer them to the Maryland PSC if that is, if that would make sense.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Okay, Ms. Erickson, I'm going to add to the motion that you correct the typo at the bottom of page 2 to replace PUC with PSC, or maybe better yet, Public Service Commission. Okay?
So it's the only concern I have about that is that this does apply to both Pennsylvania and Maryland. I have to say, I don't know off the top of my head what the reference to the Pennsylvania Commission is, whether it's a Public Utility Commission versus a Public Service Commission.
Correct.
It's a PUC, but we can take them.
Ms. Erickson, perhaps you remove the term PUC and replace it with state utility regulator. So that would cover both Pennsylvania and or Maryland as applicable. Although,
Is it just the state tax surcharge where that PUC appears?
I believe so.
Because that's not applicable to Maryland customers, so the charges would not be approved by this commission, would only be approved by the Pennsylvania Commission.
Okay, so perhaps to make clear then, put charges approved by the Pennsylvania PUC. So
I'm sure we can do that.
Okay. All right. With that, I would move that we direct UGI Utilities Incorporated to delete the duplicated phrase, quote, not applicable to customers in Maryland, and to add reference to the Pennsylvania PUC, and accept the proposed revisions to the company's customer bills effective November 1st, 2021. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 28 is Bel Air impoundment property tax rider reconciliation from Maryland American Water Company. On this item for staff, we have Mark Riley and James Greger, and for the company, Russell Frisbee, Scott Grace, and Chris Arfel.
Good morning, Mr. Commissioners. This is Chairman and Commissioners. This is Mark Riley on Mark Riley staff. On August 13th, 2021, the Maryland American Water Company filed a reconciliation of the Bel Air impoundment property tax rider of the collections made during the period July 2020 through June 2021 with the actual property tax expenses of $182,306.35. This filing was made in compliance with Commission Order 89022 dated February 5th, 2019 in case 9487. This case coincided with the completion of the company's newly constructed Bel Air impoundment facility. The company's filing proposed to distribute an overcollection amount of $37,249.37 to all customer accounts by applying a one-time credit. Staff reviewed Attachment A, Attachment B. Staff requested and received copies of the monthly customer bills to verify the accuracy of collections for the 5/8, 1-inch, and 2-inch meter service sizes. Staff also requested and received copies of the quarterly customer bills for the 4 and 8-inch private fire protection service categories. Staff compared the amounts billed of each customer class to the Bel Air impoundment area surcharge rates in the approved tariff. The company provided a revised reconciliation schedule, which resulted in an overcollection of $52,104.93. Staff reviewed the revised reconciliation schedule and found the formulas, calculations, and amounts were accurate. Staff recommended that the company file the revised reconciliation. On September 9th, 2021, the company filed the revised reconciliation results, which results in an overcollection of $52,104.93. Staff determined the September 9th, 2021 reconciliation is appropriately calculated and accurately reflects the property tax costs incurred and collections from August 2020 through June 2021. Staff recommends the commission direct the company to distribute the $52,104.93 overcollection amount as a one-time credit on customers' bills in accordance with the customer service amounts shown in the company's September 9th, 2021 filing.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Good morning, counsel for Maryland American Water Company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Russell Frisbee, appearing on behalf of Maryland American Water Company. With me are Chris Arfa and Scott Grace from the company. We have no further comments other than to thank the staff for their efforts. And we're available for answering any questions. As I said, Mr. Arfa and Mr. Grace are present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just a quick question. If I missed it in the filing, I apologize. Does anybody know what this will translate to, this $52,000 in bill credits to an average residential customer? How much does it, give me a sense? Doesn't have to be too accurate.
Hopefully, if Mr. Arfa can come on. I know there was a difference based on the mains, but Chris,
I can take that.
Oh, fine.
Russell.
Grace. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. There's a flat amount that we will give back based on the number of meters and the amount of the over collections, which was allocated by meter size. So for a 5/8 meter, which is our typical residential customer, they will receive a credit of $5.36.
Okay, so it's not based on usage, it's based on the meter size.
Correct.
But were the taxes collected in rates based on meter size, or were they based on usage?
I was not a part of that last rate case to say for sure, in the rate design. So I could get that information, but I don't have it at my
This
fingertips.
is Mark Riley. They are based on meter size, the collections.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, I would move that we direct the company to distribute the overcollection amount in the amount of $52,104.93 as a one-time credit on a customer's bill in accordance with customer service amounts shown in the company's September 9th, 2021 filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, the final item today is item number 29, the evaluation of BGE's prepaid pilot program in case number 9453. On this item for staff, we have David Hoppick and Annette Garofalo. For the company, Bev Sikora, David Kahn, John Frayne, and Jackie Berger. And for People's Counsel, Jacob Auslander.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Good morning. We will begin with staff. Mr. Hoppick.
Good morning. It appears my camera is not working. Don't know why, but I'll begin.
We could see you.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. David Hoppick on behalf of staff. As explained in our September 3rd, 2021 comments, staff recommends that the Commission accept BGE's proposal to conduct a second prepaid pilot subject to several conditions. Staff recommends that in the event of another disconnection moratorium, the Commission require BGE to suspend recruitment if in the recruitment phase, or if during the pilot, extend the pilot to get 12 months of data during a period in which customers may be disconnected. Additionally, staff recommends the BGE be required to submit a letter to the Commission to explain its compliance in the event of another disconnection moratorium. Additionally, staff recommends that the Commission continue to require prepaid participants to affirmatively respond to test communications. Additionally, staff recommends that the Commission require BGE to track and report on communication delivery failures lasting more than 3 hours, how these failures were resolved, and if any customers were removed from the pilot because of communication failures in the second evaluation report. Staff recommends that the Commission require BGE to work to improve performance related to payments and ease of use, and to update the Commission on these improvements in February of 2022. And finally, require BGE to submit updated terms and conditions and the tariff within 30 days of a Commission order approving the second pilot if the order approves changes in the pilot methodology. In its presentation slides provided to staff yesterday, which is my understanding BG will present either after myself or OPC. BG did not specifically address staff's recommendations regarding tracking and reporting communication failures, or if there is another disconnection moratorium. Additionally, regarding responding to test communications, staff again notes that there should not be a delay in sending these notifications, unlike in the original pilot when customers had approximately a 1 hour delay, allowing customers applying to the second pilot to complete their response to the test communications while speaking with a BG representative or applying online. And staff further notes the lack of data on communication failures available for the initial pilot. Staff notes additionally that BG's new proposal as of yesterday to recruit and have participants start the second prepaid pilot during the winter heating season. Staff recommends retaining this customer protection that BG previously committed to and not start recruitment until after the winter heating season. Thank you. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hoppick and your team for a very thorough recommendation and all those data requests. We'll next turn to Office of People's Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Auslander.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Jacob Auslander on behalf of the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. We filed brief comments on the prepaid evaluation report at the beginning of September, and our position hasn't changed from the position taken in those comments. We would not oppose a second pilot in a non-pandemic setting. So we think that the staff's recommendations regarding changes that BG&E should make to suspend recruitment should another disconnection moratorium be imposed really weighs in favor of holding off on a second pilot until the pandemic has ended. We would share staff's recommendations otherwise, including not permitting BG&E to stop the communication testing confirmation process before officially signing a customer up on a prepaid account. And then BG&E has suggested that they would change the maximum amount of an arrearage from $600 to $1,000, and we would not oppose that that request. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Auslander. Just to be clear, you said OPC would support this, but not in a pandemic environment. So,
we did not support the overall BG prepaid program design. We think that the benefits of a prepaid program could be implemented without resorting to an actual disconnection. But having said that, we realized that the commission approved BG&E's pilot without that, without that safeguard in place. So we do recognize that BG&E's prepaid pilot essentially did not occur because of the disconnection moratoriums as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we recognize that that the commission has approved this pilot, and so we would not oppose it in that sense.
Thank you for that clarification. Counsel for BGE.
Good morning, Chairman Stanek again, and Commissioners. Beverly Sikora on behalf of BGE. BGE does have a presentation that we'd like to go through. I believe control is going to be given to Mr. Khan to walk through the presentation. With Mr.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
You
Let me
should
see.
have controls in a minute if you don't already.
All right, trying to share right now. They didn't teach me this in college, so I'm doing my best.
Oh.
This.
There you go.
Okay,
There you go.
great.
Excellent.
I
That looks great. Thank you.
think- All right, thank you for your patience.
So along with Mr. Khan, we also have John Frayne and from our Regulatory Strategy and Revenue Policy Group and Jackie Berger from Apprise, who did conduct the analysis of all the data collected. And as you could probably see from our chat, the Mr. Hoppick got a little bit ahead of us when he was commenting on our presentation in his comments. You know, we didn't specifically address those two issues because we didn't take issue with them. You know, we are willing and we are working to track information about the communication failures. And then also in regard to the, you know, communicating to the commission about any improvements or fixes to, you know, the system, communicating to those to you by February. A lot of the issues that had been discussed that I believe Mr. Hoppick was referring to were things that happened early on in the initial pilot. You know, we did have some growing pains, and you know, so we're working through those, you know, throughout the pilot, and really towards, you know, I don't know at what point in the pilot, but you know, we did get to a point where we worked those out. So you know, while we're always looking to improve the pilot and you know, service in general, there really aren't any outstanding, you know, I'd say things that need to be corrected or fixed. There are things that we will be proposing to do to streamline our processes, but you know, I think we've you know, we addressed all the issues and problems that customers were having, you know, as we were going through the pilot. We didn't let those linger until the end. So with that, I will now turn over the presentation to Mr. Khan.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, David Khan, CONN. I'm the Energy Assistance Program Manager, as you can see. A number of the issues, as Ms. Sikora noted, have been addressed. So I'll try to make this as brief as possible to leave time for questions and dialogue. In summary, I think as you've seen, we are requesting the Commission's approval for us to launch the second phase, another 1 year of prepaid pilot. Our proposal is to enroll up to 1,000 new customers. So that's in addition to the remaining customers from the first phase. We do have about 260 who still remain. Obviously, when we were unable to enroll additional customers, we lost customers at a gradual pace. So that's about where we are right now. As in the first phase, we would ask Apprise to conduct a similar evaluation, and the timing would be about the same. So about 6 months after the 1 year anniversary of stopping enrollment, we would have that evaluation and our filing submitted to you as we did the first time. Similarly, we would stick to the original limitation of no more than 40% of the participants being low income, and that's either customers who are already receiving assistance from OHEP or those who report their income to us during the enrollment process to indicate that they would be eligible. You'll see the figures for participation in a moment. As we've noted, we asked that the arrearage limit for the pilot be raised to $1,000. We'll speak to this next item about affirmative responses to those test alerts. And then finally, we'll speak a little bit to the issue of when we might start this enrollment and for how long we'd like to be able to continue it. So a quick view of the customers who participated the first time around. And I'll go over this again very quickly. The report that was submitted from Apprise gives you a lot more detail. But as you can see, there was a wide range of incomes represented by the participants. The top left part of the page shows you incomes in reference to the federal poverty level, which of course is relevant to the OHEP participation. And then the bottom left shows the breakdown of those who were actually participating in OHEP, about 6% of pilot participants, versus those who reported to us their income. Because it's self-reporting, it's not scientific, but this is what we learned from the customers. In terms of demographic and other jurisdiction and other characteristics, we did group together some of these jurisdictions, not because we're trying to create super jurisdictions, just for ease of reporting, but you can see that there was a pretty wide spread across our service territory. And then the bottom half shows that in most of these measures, the pilot participants more or less reflected the larger population. A few more dual fuel customers in prepaid. Retail supply, there was substantially more, 34 versus 24%. A lot of participation in peak rewards, a little bit less in quick home energy checkup. And we'll circle back to that too, because that becomes important relative to energy usage. Why did customers tell us they enrolled in prepaid service? Well, you can see the top 5 reasons. Flexible payment, some of them were merely curious. I thought it was interesting that in that group, a lot more disenrolled, but maybe that's natural. Paying off old charges. And then below that red box, there are 2 that were pretty close, convenience and more control. None of this is a surprise to us. We heard this similar reasons from other utilities across the country. And then in terms of arrearages and payments, we can see that for the customers who remained in the program, that is excluding the ones who disenrolled at any given point, the prepaid customers, both from electric heating and non-heating, were able to increase their payments versus the year before and compared to the non-participant control group by substantial amounts. The second 2 bullets show the percentage of the billed amounts, the coverage rates, as we call it, that they were able to pay. And you can see a relative improvement of both 11% for electric heating and 17% for non-heating. So these are just the kinds of results that we had hoped to see. Again, this was a partial year because of the pandemic, so this is why we're seeking a new pilot year. In terms of how this affected arrearages, here's sort of a visual representation of what you just saw. Looking at the left box, the prepaid customers, to sort of level set, the blue bar shows how many customers or what percentage of them started the program with 0 arrearage. And then the orange one shows where they were in February of 2020, just before the disconnect moratorium began. And you can see a substantial increase in those who ended up with 0 arrearage. Across the board, looking again at that left box, you can see that arrearages decreased from start to finish, or at least start to the beginning of the disconnect moratorium for all levels of arrearage for prepaid, not as much for the control group customers. So it seems that the program, while it ran as expected and as designed, did a pretty good job of allowing customers to pay down any pre-existing arrearages that they had. This speaks to the number of collection actions, and I'll just very briefly say that, you know, it's the nature of the prepaid program that there are fewer collection actions. So this was anticipated, but to the extent that customers in the program are able to manage their payments, to reduce their arrearages, and not to incur these collection actions, that does translate into lower cost, which can help all other customers. Here is a view of the duration of disconnects. There were more frequent disconnections slightly for prepaid customers, but as we'd hoped to see, when customers were disconnected, they really were able to reconnect very quickly. Again, looking at the left side, for the blue bar, that's the prepaid customers. You can see that the average duration before the program was almost 6 days. And then moving to the pilot period, it was 2/10 or just a few hours on average that customers were disconnected. And I think that's simply because when they were disconnected, the payment needed to reconnect was very, very low. Again, this is a partial period. It stopped in March of 2020 when the disconnect moratorium began, and we'd like to see if we can get a full 12 months worth of results here. Usage reduction, you can see the results here. I won't go through those in much detail, except to note that the evaluation that Apprise did discounted or did not include reductions in usage because a customer was off service. So this was really only while the service was on, which we think is a more valid evaluation. I'm not sure if all the evaluations across the country did that, but this one certainly did. The other thing I'd note is that we saw this earlier. In Maryland, we have a very robust suite of energy conservation programs in Empower. Not all states have that, and so despite the reductions, the conservation that a lot of our customers have already experienced, we still saw net changes, net reductions in usage. I think the Empower annual goals are 2%, so these are pretty meaningful changes, even in this partial year, impacted as it was by changes in lifestyle because of COVID. Here is a sort of intro to some of the responses that we heard from customers in the telephone survey, and all of those responses were submitted to staff. You can look through those if you want. But here are a few highlights. When we asked if the customers felt that the program helped them pay off past due bills, I want to focus on the chart on the right, because this is really just the customers who came into the program with past due bills or arrearages. And you can see that 79% of them reported that they felt the customer helped them pay off those past due bills. 17% said it did not, and 4% didn't know. When asked if they felt the program helped them control their energy expenses and their usage, etc., again, you can see the results here. For the ones on the right who remained enrolled in the program, 49% reported that they did reduce their usage. And we've already seen the amount of usage reduction in the previous chart. This one I thought was very important, because if the customers don't like the program, that's a pretty bad sign. But what we did see, again, for the orange bars, those who remained enrolled in the program, if you add up the somewhat with the very satisfied, we get to 96% who reported some level of satisfaction, 96%. Even those who disenrolled, almost half, reported some level of satisfaction with the program. And here are just a few of the comments that we got. Again, all of the sort of verbatim comments that were submitted are on file with staff, and I think they may even have submitted them as part of their filing. Not all the comments were good, but some of them were pretty good. I really like this last one. I'm much more aware of the cost of running a one-bedroom apartment. This is really what we had hoped to see. So to wrap up with the last few slides, we heard that there is not a stated objection to increasing that arrearage limit to $1,000. We do think that that'll give us a broader experience of how customers can manage even higher arrearages in a pilot setting. So staff and OPC did object to our request to drop this customer requirement that they affirmatively respond to the test alerts. One thing that we saw is that there were a number of steps that customers had to take to complete enrollment in the first pilot phase, and this was among them. We had more than 1,000 customers attempt to enroll but not complete that enrollment process, and one of the key reasons was they didn't respond to the test alerts because they weren't paying that close attention. I think they didn't click the link in the email, etc. We are able to confirm delivery of these test alerts, whether email or text messages or phone calls, before enrolling a customer. So we want to assure you that that safeguard is still there. And we also, during the enrollment process, we will institute a double entry of email addresses, phone numbers, et cetera, to avoid customers incorrectly entering this information, to make sure that we are getting that proper email address, et cetera. So we'd like to see, in fact, if this requirement isn't really needed in a pilot setting where it is more controlled. In terms of the payment and the login issues, Ms. Sakura addressed this. I'll just say that, as she noted, we're really not seeing issues with payment problems or login issues. If they should occur, we'll certainly catalog those, and we'll be happy to report them, but we don't really have anything to improve on in terms of those specific issues. Staff did mention adding prepaid functionality to our mobile app. We certainly plan to do that if we get to full deployment. For a pilot and the time that we have, we weren't planning to do that. The cost would be prohibitive for now, and it would take quite a while. So we'd like to reserve the mobile app functionality for full deployment. And then finally, staff asked us, of course, to change the tariff terms and conditions. For now, depending on your response to the test alerts, although I don't think that's actually in the tariff, but certainly the arrearage issue is, if you were to approve that, we would certainly change the tariff to reflect that $1,000 limit and any other changes that are necessary before launching a new pilot phase. I won't spend much time on this because I think Mr. Auslander has addressed these, except to say that we continue to urge that prepaid service include disconnections. We think the record showed that when they occurred, they were very brief. Customers managed them pretty well. Finally, in terms of timing and cost, we did issue a very conservative estimate to staff about the cost to get to a second pilot phase. We've sort of sharpened our pencils and reduced that estimated cost, some of which would go to continuing to work with our vendor PAYGO and for the cost of a second evaluation. In terms of timing, initially we thought it could take as long as 3 months from a ruling from the commission to beginning to enroll customers, but we really think we can do that in 1 month now, absent any significant program changes. In terms of enrolling in the winter months, I recall that in the first go-round, there was concern by commissioners about how would customers who have just enrolled in the program react. Would we see disconnections more frequently at the beginning when they hadn't gotten used to the program? In fact, we didn't see that the first time around. There was no dramatic spike in disconnects after the first few weeks or months when customers enrolled. And I think that showed us that we can enroll into the winter months without that risk of a sharp increase in disconnects early on. As we've noted, when disconnects occur, they're very brief, and sort of repeat the obvious, any customer who doesn't like prepaid service is free to return to regular postpaid service. Even if they've been disconnected, they would be immediately reconnected if they choose to leave the program. And so for these reasons, we would like to start enrollment as soon as possible. And if it should require continuing into the winter months, we think that we've seen in the first go round that that's a safe thing to do. We'd like to be able to do that. Hopefully, with the promotional methods that we're planning, it won't take that long. But if it does, we'd like to not have to wait until the spring, but to get started as soon as we can. So with that, let me stop, maybe stop sharing if I can. And,
Mr. Khan, if
yes.
you could keep sharing, we might have
Sure.
questions on the slides if that works.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. We will begin with some questions from the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Herman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Khan or Mr. Frayne may know this. What's the ongoing annual cost of running this program?
Well, I guess I'll start with that if that's okay. So we have a licensing fee that we pay to our vendor PAYGO. That's $95,000 for every year that we run the program. That would continue as long as it runs. Other than that, all the other ongoing operating costs are really just some of the time that I spend on the program and a few of my colleagues. We consider that sort of level of effort. We're not engaging additional staff to do that. So it's really, I guess the only other actual hard dollar cost would be the $1.50 transaction fee that you authorized us to reimburse to customers in the program. That's maybe a few $100s a month. I'm not aware of any other sort of actual ongoing costs.
Okay. So, if you've got $95,000 in annual licensing fees, all your operating costs, generally speaking, are not incremental. They're existing IT and existing personnel time. Is that what I heard you say?
That's about right.
Okay. And the $1.50 fee is a fee that we said should be not assessed on customers, but included in the cost of the program, right?
I need to defer to Mr. Frayne about any issues of recovery.
Yeah, no, Commissioner Herman, in the initial approval for the pilot, it was determined that customers would be allowed one fee per month be waived, and then after that, the customer would be responsible for the fee.
Okay, and so I saw in your filing that I believe you say that the only savings that you were able to calculate was $26 per customer for reductions in cash working capital. Is that an annual $26 per customer?
Yes,
Yeah.
Commissioner Herman, that would be an annual amount per customer.
Okay, that's an annual amount. So I'm just trying to understand, you've spent 3.5 million and you were supposed to spend, you anticipated spending $2 million. And now you're asking for another 500,000. Why 500,000 if your licensing fee is only 95,000 to continue this? What's the rest of where's the $400,000 going?
So when we issued the $500,000 estimate to staff, that was a little bit early on, and it anticipated a wider range of one-time IT enhancements to make the second phase of the pilot run smoother. We've since dropped a number of those enhancements and reduced the potential cost. So we're down to about an estimate of about 335,000. Of that 335, the $95,000 to PAYGO and the I think it's 136 roughly, 140 roughly would be for a prizes evaluation. So that would leave about $100,000 purely in IT and other related costs to take care of a few things that we'd like to have the pilot run more smoothly. Some of these things are activities that we sort of do behind the scenes that customers don't see to keep the program running. These kind of one-off enhancements would automate some of these to allow us to spend a little bit less time, particularly if we have a larger number of customers in the program. So that's really what it boils down to.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So if you're only able to estimate $26 savings per customer, do you anticipate that this program would ever be cost effective or at least break even if you were to run it on a non-pilot basis?
Yeah, let me address that in a couple of different ways. One is I do think it would, because we weren't able to demonstrate sort of significant cost savings from the write-off side, partly because the formal pilot period sort of did get truncated by the disconnect moratorium. Over the long haul, we would expect potentially to see a differential between customers who remain in prepaid service and are able to keep up to date with their payments versus similar customers who are in postpay who would reach the disconnect and the write-off phase, adding obviously to all customers' costs. We weren't able to sort of produce those findings in the truncated pilot period. The second is the $26 that you noted. That's the savings in cash working capital. But as one of the slides pointed out, there was also a sharp drop in sort of regular ongoing collection activity. So, for instance, the nature of the prepaid program is that we don't send a turn-off notice in the mail. That has a dollar cost to it. We don't send a field technician to the premise prior to disconnect under prepaid. That has a cost savings as well. So it wasn't just the $26 that we feel we saw, but I think a longer pilot period and then into full deployment would produce more of those savings. The second aspect of cost even or break even is we didn't present the program, we're really not presenting the program as necessarily a sort of a standalone cost or profit center. It's not intended to be a cost benefit issue. It's really like many of the other payment and billing options that we offer, we felt it was another value-added offering that we could provide to our customers if they liked it and if it helped them, and not
Well,
necessarily.
Mr. Khan, let me interrupt you there. I mean, at some point, we're running a pilot because we don't want to make all of the customers pay for a program that only a few of them use, generally speaking. I mean, I think it's got to be somewhat, cost effective, because if it costs me for Commissioner Richard to use prepaid program, I'm not sure that I'm very comfortable with that. Over time, I think that if it were cost neutral, fine, let's offer it. And if he wants to take advantage of it and I don't, that's my choice. But if it's going to cost me money so that he gets to participate in it, and it's not a low income, it's not aimed at low income or anything like that, I'm not exactly sure I like that subsidy concept. So
Right.
let's,
Well,
we can move off of that. But, I'm wondering, hold on. Let me just ask another question. My question is, why do this now? If we're still, I mean, we're all still doing this from home and doing this from places and things like that. So the pandemic, I think almost all of us could agree, isn't over. So why are we going to spend another $500,000 and then have you come back a year from now, say, well, the pandemic still wasn't really over. We weren't really disconnecting the way we normally disconnect. And so we need to run it for another year.
Great question. We have returned to disconnecting both for non-prepaid customers and then a little bit later for prepaid customers for quite some time now. So despite completely agree that the pandemic is not over, that's obvious, but we have returned to normal collections. And what we've seen in prepaid, we haven't been collecting the data and the results. That wasn't within the scope of Apprise's evaluation. But what we've seen is that notwithstanding the continued stress that we're all under, the program works. We are at the point where among those customers who remain in prepaid, we rarely see more than one disconnection per day. We haven't seen one for several days. Customers are keeping up with their payments. And when they do get disconnected, they're typically back in service within a few hours, even less sometimes. And so even in the middle of a pandemic, as long as there isn't a disconnect moratorium that would substantially disrupt the program, we think it would be a perfectly valid pilot year to present results to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Khan, I have several questions. I want to check my understanding on some things, but let me kind of follow up on the discussion you just had with Commissioner Herman with regard to returning to disconnects. Yeah, the moratorium has been lifted, and yes, the commission and the utilities have worked together to return to the disconnect process, but it's very different than it was pre-pandemic. Would you agree?
Of course, but for prepaid, not I mean, in terms of our collections actions, the way that we run the prepaid program, no, it's back to how it originally was.
Yeah, but I'm talking about normal disconnects. The company has returned to normal disconnects, but with a huge caveat, generally. Set aside the prepaid pilot. We're not in an environment where people were being disconnected like they were pre-pandemic, in as much as the utilities have made commitments to the commission to work with customers through these trying times, that the customer only had to make a contact with the company and the company would work with that customer, et cetera, et cetera. That's very different than prior to March of 2020. Wouldn't you agree?
I think that's fair, Commissioner O'Donnell. I mean, certainly we're offering payment arrangements to customers. We always did, but under more liberal terms with agreement with you, whether it's limited income customers or non-limited income customers. So in that regard, yes, we're doing more payment arrangements for longer periods of time. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, it is. So the comparisons to postpaid customers and prepaid pilot customers is kind of skewed by this new arrangement with regard to payment programs and working with customers and not being so heavy-handed with disconnects, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't it skew that whole comparison? Because that's what we're comparing here, prepaid pilot to postpaid populations.
Well, yes. We're also comparing the experience of the prepaid participants themselves in the year prior to their prepaid pilot, so to speak, and the year of. So it's what Ms. Berger would call a difference in difference analysis. That is not just the participants versus the control group customers, but also the year and year after experiences. So I do think we will get a valid evaluation, a valid experience out of this, notwithstanding that the times are a little bit different. I mean, arguably, certainly, COVID has been an extraordinary time, generational. Any given year offers its own challenges. I joined the company in 2008, right before the Great Recession started. Every period that we go through offers differences. This one's completely unusual, don't get me wrong, and I think we all agree that we don't ever want to go through it again. But we are gradually getting back to normal. I think that we'll learn what we need to. I hope that you'll learn what you need to from a second pilot phase.
Well, if we go into a second pilot phase, assuming that we do, just for argument's sake, and the moratorium is reinstituted, don't we just reskew the whole pilot again?
Yes, and as staff has pointed out, if that should occur, then if we've not completed enrollment, then enrollment should stop. We agree with that. If we have completed enrollment, but we're not able to offer prepaid service in the way it's designed, we would suspend the pilot period. That's perfectly feasible, and we would certainly agree to that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure then if that occurs, that we're spending money prudently on a pilot that is going to give us tenuous results information at best. So let's move on. Let me move on.
Sure.
How many customers were enrolled at the height of enrollment? In other words, what was the max number of customers you had enrolled in the program at any one time?
We had 527 customers who enrolled at one point or another. And just to clarify that, we started enrollment in mid-August of 2019. We stopped enrolling in November. Over that period of time, we had 527 who enrolled. Some of them left the program shortly after enrolling. I think those were the merely curious, and others stuck with the program. Since then, as I noted before, we've had gradual attrition because we're not enrolling any new customers, and we're down to about 260.
Do you know why you could never get to the 1,000 cap? Why were
Yeah,
people
we did.
beating down your door to get into this program?
Yeah, we certainly learned a few lessons about how to get this information out to customers. One thing I noted before is that we had more than 1,000 on top of the 527 who attempted to enroll, who submitted a request to enroll, that began the process, but they just didn't complete it. for some of the reasons that I noted. We also learned that reaching out to customers for a program like this one by email invitation, it simply didn't work. I think it's part of the nature of prepaid service that customers, they're not really responding to emails from their friendly local utility about a program like this. When we did promote the program in different methods, social media, online in particular, we saw a sharp jump. So for instance, in October, November of that year, we got something like 84% of the customers enrolled after we had put the program on our website. So the emails didn't work so well, and that's a lesson learned.
All right, and of the 260, approximately 260 customers you have remaining, what did the original order authorizing the pilot say when sunset occurred? Should sunset occur, what was to happen to the remaining customers? What happens to these 260 should we decide we're not continuing this? Help me understand.
Yeah, the order said that we could keep them in prepaid service if they chose, if they wanted to, up until a point when the commission should determine that prepaid can no longer be offered. If that point were to come, we would then communicate with the customers and transition them back to regular service.
So if a small number of these customers, 260 that you've attributed down to, desire to stay on, we're going to still keep paying this $95,000 a year licensing fee and all the other program costs, even if only a few customers stay on.
Yeah, so that about covers the program costs besides the transaction fees that we talked about. Our hope, our intention was that we complete the pilot, we seek approval if the results warranted it, seek approval from you for transition to full deployment. We understood that if that should occur, it was certainly possible that some of the rules around the program might change. And the plan was then to communicate with any remaining customers in the program and say, here are how the rules will change. Would you like to remain in prepaid service, or would you like to leave? And then transition to full deployment where it would be open to all customers. If the pilot didn't work out as we hoped and the commission chose to end it, then that's when we would stop, and we would stop engaging PAYGO. We would transition the customers back to regular service. I mean, but for COVID, I think we would have gone on that schedule.
Let me ask you one more question because I'm going way over time in my allotment, I think. Can you put the two charts up from your filing? It was page from the report on the pilot. It was page 8, but it's the chart that compares prepaid arrearages in a bar chart to control group arrearages in a set of bar charts.
This one?
I'm
no, sorry.
I have a question about that one, but no, that's not the one. Keep going back to get the bar chart. Keep going back. That one.
Yep.
So I think I understand this, but I'm not sure. So for $100 or 101 to 200, I'm talking about prepaid arrearages. It looks like the number of customers went down from the start to February of 2020 for arrearages and everything above $100. Am I reading that right?
You're seeing that for everything above 0, actually. So the very first bar to the right of the zeros.
So the orange bar on 0 is above the blue bar above 0. All the rest of them are below the blue bar. So help me understand the difference here.
Sure. What that's showing is that for all arrearage amounts, starting arrearage amounts above 0, so those are the blue ones, for all of them above 0, you had a larger number or percentage really of customers who began the program with those amounts, 100, 100 to 200, etc. You had a larger percentage that started the program with those arrearage amounts, then ended the program, or rather ended the February 2020 period before the disconnection moratorium. So the percentage of customers with actual arrearages across the board declined. The only category of arrearages that increased was 0. So all of those arrears in the very small bars off to the right, those customers shifted to 0 arrearage.
Yeah, so I said that up front, but I'm trying to understand that 0 column. How does that number increase? How
These
does that
plans,
percentage go from 50% to 85%?
it shows
Because,
that it, I'm
Um,
sorry.
let me step in, Dave, that they paid off the arrearages over the time from the start of the program to February 2020. Many of the customers were able to pay off all the people who were blue in the 100, 100 or 200. Those, the people who, that caused those to go down moved into the 0 because they paid off their arrearage during that time period.
So maybe this is where I'm tripping up on this. That first column, 0, is not 0 to $99.
No, it's 0.
Okay, because the rest of the columns are,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we should have had 0 to 100 for,
Or 1 to 100, right?
yeah, 1 to 100.
all right. I guess that helps me understand a little bit better, right? That was tripping me up. It was looking like arrearages were going up in that one category, and I wanted to make sure I understood that.
My apologies for that. I certainly could have presented it in a clearer way.
Okay, very good. That's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually like to get Mr. Auslander and Mr. Hoppick back into this. You've had a chance to hear the questions, so I don't want to repeat the very good questions that have already been answered. But I just want to see if you have any reaction to any of these answers, and just I want to probe a little bit on it seems like you're both of the view that there is a public interest in pursuing or continuing this pilot, even in the face that it seems like it really wasn't that popular. They could barely get half the number they were trying to get. They weren't able to get a representative sample. It was pretty surprisingly over budget and will be pretty expensive to continue. The timing seems to be just a little off for right now, given the uncertainty. Why? Maybe you could just help me understand, why do you both seem to endorse the idea of continuing this with some caveats?
I first just clarify in response to a question that the Chairman Stanek had asked me initially. I think that our position is that we recognize that the Commission has authorized BG&E to test a prepaid pilot, and that essentially they have not been able to do so yet. So to that extent, we would support that the Commission's original ruling approving a prepaid pilot to test the things that the company sought to test. Our current concern with the timing is due to the pandemic, but I think that there are certainly serious questions about the cost effectiveness that would need to be answered before a fully deployed a prepaid program should be considered being approved.
For myself, a big part of my reasoning was, did the pilot provide the data and information that would be needed to make a decision on full deployment? And we think it did not, in large part because the results are so specific to a period in which the stick of prepaid really wasn't there, right? Because the way prepaid works is you pay ahead to avoid a disconnection, but if that threat of disconnection goes away, you've kind of removed the entire mechanism of prepaid. Specifically focusing on the question of costs and cost effectiveness. This is something staff addressed a lot in its initial comments on the initial proposal. And I'm working a bit from memory here, but by far the largest cost savings forecast was from reduced write-offs. And we don't have data from the pilot because of the moratorium on the effect on write-offs. So part of that question of, do we have data to decide on full deployment, was, one of the main benefits. We didn't get the data to decide whether that estimate of that benefit was realistic and what it's likely to be going forward. So, you know, the cost effectiveness, you know, I think we would need additional data to determine that, but it would also be very dependent on estimates for how many people joined the prepaid pilot over time. Because if, you know, if it stays at 1,000 customers, I think Commissioner Herman is likely correct. You're not going to get to cost effectiveness. If you get to orders of magnitude higher than that, which my recollection is the original cost benefit analysis showed, that's when the benefits start to exceed the costs. And then touching on one other issue, on the, you know, whether you would enroll during the winter moratorium, I would note that the first time around, there was not enrollment during the winter moratorium. So they stopped after November. So I'm not sure we really have data for people joining, say, during January who are new to the program and experience the bills they might get during a very cold month.
Okay. All right, so I guess neither one of you saw any real red flags from the apprised data that we do have that would caution us to whether we should be continuing this pilot. And I just wanted to ask, are we aware of any other places where this is being done now? I mean, any other states, any other utilities that are doing such a program? And do we have anything we can learn from those programs before we necessarily invest more of our ratepayer money into this pilot that, again, seems, well, I have a lot of hard difficulties with some of the data we have already.
So, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Hopper, go ahead.
I'd like to hear from OPC and staff, please.
Okay. So there are other programs across the country. I know there's pretty sizable programs, for example, in Arizona, and I believe Georgia Power has a very significant program as well. So in our initial comments, we did look at experiences and kind of lessons learned from those programs. For example, the requirement to respond to the test communications is something that was put in place for the Georgia Power program. In staff's comments on the apprised report, you know, we were focusing on the results of the data to date. And, you know, the specific question of, you know, continue, not continue the pilot given the moratorium. But yeah, there are lots of programs around the country. And so, you know, I think the decision to go full deployment, you know, would need to also review the up-to-date lessons learned from those other programs as well.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any questions. I think for me, the question is, do we throw more good money after bad at this point? So thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Apologize. Mr. Khan, does the company have timing requirements with regard to engaging contracts with Apprise or PAYGO? In other words, if we were to hold this thing in abeyance for some period to make sure we're well beyond the public health pandemic we're in still, do you have any contractual issues that are going to continue to cost money? I mean, I know the $95,000 licensing fee is going to continue until we order you to stop it. But any other contractual concerns from the company's perspective?
Certainly not with Apprise. And Ms. Berger from Apprise is with us. I invite her to speak up if there's a concern, but I think that they would be prepared to do another evaluation whenever that's called for. As for PAYGO, we don't have them on the line. I would need to check back with them. I think that they began working with us with the hope no guarantee, of course, with the hope that a pilot would lead to full deployment. Whether they would need to ask for reconsideration of their terms, I don't know. I could certainly check with them on that. I mean, at a certain point, no, I'll stop with that.
Yeah, you can check with PAYGO. That might be important information to get back to all the parties and to us with regard to how your contractual relationship with them would work under certain scenarios. We ordered you to return 260 customers to postpaid and stop the pilot altogether. You know, when is your next payment due? Various scenarios under that contract may help us at least understand decisions we're about ready to make.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if I could address one small point that Commissioner Richard raised.
You may briefly.
Okay, there was reference to a representative sample in the program, and I just wanted to recall that in the first pilot phase, we had suggested, and the Commission agreed, that we not seek a strictly representative, statistically representative sample of the entire customer population to be in the pilot program, but that rather we put the information out there and determine based on interest the types of customers, the demographics, et cetera, that wanted to enroll. And so it wasn't our intention, and we didn't attempt to try to create a sort of a mini representation of our entire residential customer base. So I just wanted to put that out there and clarify that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that was a concern early on at OPC, so I just also share that concern. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the parties and the utilities. Obviously, a lot of work has been put into this prepaid pilot program. The timing was rather unfortunate. If we knew now what we knew back in 2019, likely we would not have set sail on this program. I am going to have the Commission take this matter under advisement. We will issue an order at some point in the future on BG's request of June 1st, 2021. With no additional matters on today's docket, but before I adjourn the meeting, we will reconvene at 11:50 a.m. this morning for the oral arguments in case number 9666. That will be at 11:50 this morning on this channel. This administrative meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.